So for a while now, I've been working on a comic of my own, and since I'm here in Africa, I decided to check on some of the African comics that are being made currently to see what I'm up against, I guess. And as I was researching into the kind of comic industries or the comic companies that are working here in Africa, I came across Comic Republic. Now, there are a lot of other comic companies like Letty Arts and other places that make a lot of comics here in Africa. But I heard Comic Republic is an award-winning company, and most of their comics are actually free. So I can't be talking about the other ones, because I have to buy them before I read them. And since they are not free, it means I'm definitely not allowed to show it in video. So yeah, let's just stick to Comic Republic. So I did a little research on their website, and this is how their website basically looks like. I think it didn't finish loading, so the word comic doesn't look so good over here. Let me duplicate that to see if it will work. But for now, let me just go through this. Okay, so they have a couple of African comics that they've made. Well, several. That was actually to my surprise though. I wasn't expecting it to be that much and that's well developed and produced. Okay, so first they have the Comic Republic Character Bible Villains. A lot of stuff that I couldn't even wrap my head around because it seems they've already created their own universe, which is great because they can create a lot of stories and then intermerge them together, which is really good. Something every comic industry plans on making. Alright, so after going through these comics one after the other, I realized some of them had great titles. The front pages, or should I say the cover pages, the cover arts were really catchy. Like this one, for instance, Eru and Avenome. This one is also really cool. Hope I didn't pronounce it wrongly. Avonome, yeah. I think it's not, even though it's Nigerian, it kind of gives me Voltairean vibes, like Volta region here in Ghana. Anyway, so this is the one that actually caught my eye, Tatashi. And I'll take you guys through the comic in a little bit, because I think they really did well with the first impressions of the comic. But basically, when we're reading it, you get to understand. I myself have read it a little bit, but I don't think I got enough time to study the story well, which is why I actually want to make a video about it. I want to kind of review it, basically. So yes, they have Meta Knights, like I said, Avonome, Galactic Core, Eru, which is like their version of Spawn, and Uhuru. Yeah, a lot of creepy titles. Most of them are in their native languages, like Yoruba and other things. So you shouldn't be expecting simple titles to remember, but they are short enough, so it's quite cool. Like Ireti and Black Moon, Skion. What is this? Is it Ate or whatever? Dead Republic. This one actually caught my eye. They based on malaria to create some zombified world. This is kind of a nice idea to go by. We have Indoli, we have Beats. This seems to be musically, inclined. Let's see. So yes, they have a lot. Probably like 16 separate comics that you can read. Each of them have gone about an average of 10 chapters, each of them. So yeah, basically, these are like PDFs that are being posted here. You can just open one and then it will show you all the chapters that are there. Let me open Tatashi, for example. When you open this, it's going to... God, my network's so bad. Guess we just have to wait for it to load. Yeah, so in case you don't know, Ghanaian internet is really bad. Like, I'm sure it's the same for some of the other African countries, most of the West African countries, but Ghana's internet is just that bad. You always have to wait for it to load. It's like we're living in 2008, how the internet was working in 2008 for America, something like that. Yeah, so this is the first chapter, the first cover art. And then it moves to this. Wait, where is it? Yeah, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. And when you open it, it basically tries to download the PDF for you. So you can go ahead and print or download it straight for it. But I think it does an automated download for you. The moment you open it, it asks you if you want to download it. But since I've already downloaded it, we'll just go straight to the comic itself. And yeah, let me move on to that. So I have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. And we're just going straight on. So as you can see here, it was done in 2018. And after 2 years, they decided to continue. And then the next year, decided to make chapter 3. Which kind of gives me hope, because this means I can take my time and make my own comic without fearing that I won't be frequent enough. Because a whole award-winning company is taking their time to make comics. Like a span of 4 years just to make 5 chapters, I guess. Anyway, chapter 1. Okay, so let me just enlarge it so that it's blah, 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 blah. Yes. Alright, so this is the first page, the cover photo actually. And I like let's talk about the art here. I like how they went in to make the details, the textures that they put in the hair, the earrings and everything. It's all original. It looks so original. You can feel that the world wouldn't be exactly what you see the real world to be. So basically the name is after a kind of pepper, chili pepper or whatever you like to call it. And that's supposed to be like a way to establish her personality as the main character. Alright, so let's just move on. Okay, so this is the next page. I wasn't really impressed when I saw this. I'm not trying to say the art is bad. It's not bad, but it's not better than this one. And I don't know if it was done by the same comic artist. Even if it wasn't, I still think this is a problem because there has to be some kind of consistency in the art style. I mean, the characters are supposed to look very similar. Look at the color of her eye. Over here, she has green eyes, green bright eyes. And then the scarf here is blue. But when you move on to the other one, you see blue eyes here with a black scarf, which is not what we saw here. So I know we are definitely going to believe the colors over here more than the colors over there. But this kind of looks like a fan art that was done by some kid somewhere. Hey, I'm not trying to roast the person who made this art. I'm just saying it looks less professional compared to this one. That's all I'm saying. Okay. And this is supposed to show you the artists that work on the comic, the name of the writer, the artist, and everyone else over here, which is really nice and professional. I like the graphic design of the whole work. It's like it was all planned out perfectly. I'm definitely going to take some notes on this. And let me see. Whatever, let's just move on straight into the comic. So seeing this character gives you an idea of Totoro from, what's the name of that animation? Man, I have a really bad memory. But I remember the character is called Totoro. That's cat-like big monster. Not a monster, big creature that's this Asian animation. Was it Chinese animation here? I just wish I remembered the title. It's a very popular animation. I don't know why I don't remember. Sheesh. Very popular and award-winning animation. But anyway, that's not why we're here. Let's just move on. Okay. So let's explain. I don't have a problem with this, but I have a problem with them thinking they had to explain to us before we read. And I think this could be at the back of the comic book, which is normal. But I think they're trying to explain too much. Anyway, let's go on. Adverts. Ha! This is the part that pissed me off, kind of. It kind of pissed me off because this is supposed to be like a map showing the map of the world that Tatashi comes from. And this map, I don't know. It puts me off because it looks like they took a photograph of the ground and they just cut some pieces out and then pasted some pictures of grass and did some mediocre artwork on top of it and then put their names on top of it. Now this actually looks like it was made by AI, this part. I don't know what you guys think, but it doesn't look so professional to me. Like if you see an artwork like this, you're not going to expect to see this in that same comic book. Anyway, like I said, there's no consistency so far. The cuts are too clean. Like this is a riverside. We should see it like this all over. Anyway, it's not my comic. Okay, so I love this look, this first look. See, so there was a world made of food. So Tatashi basically comes from a world where everything is about food. A lot of things that they use are made of food. Even weapons that they use are made of food. Their whole culture is about food. And I remember seeing rainbow corn and other stuff. I'm not going to go into details about the storyline. I'm just going to, talk about the art and what I find to be errors and mistakes that it made. So yeah, let's just move on. Someone told me it's not a good idea to always narrate at the beginning of the comic. Sometimes you should just go straight into the story and get them to follow the character and get to know what's going on, which is a good idea. So I like the art style. It seems very, mysterious, and I like the lighting and everything. The composition is also on point. And then we move on to the next page where it's like she's in the present age, and yeah, the art kind of looks mediocre from here because this looks quite professional enough. Again, I'm not trying to roast the person. I'm just saying there's no consistency here. The perspective seems too orthographic, which is not a problem, but in a case like this, it makes it hard to draw the character without making weird mistakes. The character looks like she's on a very tiny bed. But looking at the drawer next to it, the bed should kind of look bigger. Look at the size of the comb. It kind of means that the bed should look bigger than that. But it doesn't. Anyway. Okay, so this was the biggest problem I had with this comic. At the beginning, everything was going alright. But over here, it's like all the details are all over my face. It's like they were so interested in doing some artworks that have bright colors and seem so detailed. And to be honest, in art, the beauty of the work is not all that matters. When it comes to an art that needs to speak to people, tell a story, trust me, you can't go all out all the time when it comes to decoration and beautification of the work, because you'll be doing it at the expense of the story itself. In a comic, the story is what matters. The story is what's going to keep the person opening to the next page. Some people actually like seeing the artwork, so they'll keep opening. But if the story is not catchy, there's no guarantee that they'll keep reading. They'll just be looking through the pictures and then skip. And there'll be no loyal fans for your comic. So here's the actual reason why I'm saying this is a problem. You see how they've kind of put textures all over the work? It's like they were trying to show that there are trees all over, and then the leaves are blocking the lights. So basically, I'm trying to say the leaves are blocking the light, and so he's creating these shadows on top of them, which is cool. But when you add the same kind of textures so detailed on even the background, and everything looks so colorful, it makes the whole thing look so clustered. Because at first glance, I'm wondering where she is now. It's like all of a sudden she's outside the room, and then as time went on, I got to realize she jumped out of her window. And this window doesn't look so small. I mean, this window doesn't look so big enough for her to jump out of. So you wouldn't assume she jumped out of the window until you keep reading and you realize, oh, yeah, so she jumped out of the window. Like, when they are like, why can't she just use the door? Like, that's where you get to realize she jumped out of the window. But this doesn't look like someone who jumped out of the window. This looks like someone who's jumping from the top of a building or jumping from the ground to the top. And I mean, it's like you didn't get to process that this is her and it's outside, like outside the house. You just feel like it's a different scene. Basically, if I was to draw a character jumping out of a window, I would show something like some moving lines or something, leading lines to show me that the person jumped from this side outside the window. Or maybe the direction of her jump will make it show that she jumped from this side to that side. But over here, nothing shows. You just see her in the sky, like in mid-air, jubilating and all. You don't see her land, so you can't tell she was above for real. You just feel like she just jumped. Yeah, for some people who can't really tell, they won't be able to understand. But since I've been doing it for a while, it's like I can tell what they went through, what they intended. Yeah, so we're back to that Totoro character. It was like, well, this feels familiar. I like the way they brought that into it. It makes it feel intended. I also love the fact that they made them speak a bit more like Nigerians, because Nigerians like to speak Pidgin. Pidgin is like a mixture of all the languages in Nigeria with English, so that everyone can speak and understand any other person who comes from Nigeria. And Ghanaians have actually also started speaking it, so it's like we all kind of understand each other when we speak. Kind of. So yeah, I like the way the composition was done over here. It looks better than before. You see over here, there's nothing to show that this is the background. You just feel everything as one picture. And then this one too, it's like you can now tell the different characters and what is farther from them, what is closer to them. So basically over here, whatever is far from you should not really be in detail. But if you look at everything at the back, it's like everything has that texture on top of it, just as the ones close to them. So you don't really know where to look at when you're reading this. I feel like I'm talking too much about this page. Let's move on. And I like how they use this Okada or mini tricycle that they call it onokada in most places in Africa. I like how they added it to it because it makes you understand that it's a Nigerian something, and the way it moves. I mean, they are trying to exaggerate everything, which is really cool for a comic. So yeah, she jumps out of the Okada, and then here's another problem I had with the art. See how everything in the background has detailed textures on them? Okay, when you look at this picture for the first time, where do you look at? You just try with me. What's the first thing you look at when you look at that page? Bam. Okay, let's go once again. 3, 2, 1, bam. It's like whenever you look at it, you don't really see what they wanted you to see. It's like the focus is on the markets, but your eyes are over here, over there, over here, and it doesn't make sense. Because we know this is Tatashi, alright? But when you look at it, you can't feel like she is different from whatever is here. You feel like they're all together. One thing you can do to tell whether the composition is right is blur your eyesight and look at the picture. If anything stands out from the other in terms of color, in terms of texture, in terms of value. The value is like how dark or bright a certain part of the picture looks. So if you look at this, you can tell that when you blur your eyes on this side, I don't know if you guys can blur your eyes on command like I can. Maybe I can I can add some Gaussian blur to it for you guys to understand. Maybe. Let's just see. But basically, when you blur your eyes on this one, you can see her separately. You can see this guy separately because of their colors. They stand out from the background a bit. But not so much for this part because they seem all dull on a dull background, which is not so good. The lighting should be intended. Anyway. So yeah, back to this place. You can see all of them it's like they are not brighter than the background. They are not darker than the background. So you can't really tell whether this is all part of what we have to look at. But when you read here, you get to understand that they're talking about the palace and then a small market, which doesn't even look like a market. But if you take your time and look through it, you realize this is actually kind of like popcorn and ice cream or something. It doesn't give you the chance to suck it all in. These are like cupcakes. So she's in the market, this looks like a normal African market. Wait. No, I didn't even get this. He's saying buy fresh fish. But it's not fish I'm seeing. Fish that looks like pepper. Does that even make sense? Anyway, maybe they just decided to change whatever he was advertising. But these mistakes are not supposed to be tolerated when it comes to an actual published comic. I mean, whoever edited this, whoever supervised the whole art direction should actually notice all these mistakes. But that's not my job to do. So over here you can see they did very well with the composition for this side. You can feel that the lighting on her face was intended. So you can feel like she's separate from the background. This is just like photography where you put a backlight behind the person just to create that outline of lights called the rim light to separate him or her from the background. This is the reason why it's very important. So when you blur your eyes, you can see the purple giving the shape of her hair, which helps you to identify that is her and that's the background. And you see, I didn't even notice this. There's a cameo of anime characters. A lot of anime characters. This looks like Luffy here in the background. I don't know if you guys can see that. That's Luffy right there. And this looks like Naruto. Wait, let me zoom in. Let me try and zoom in for you guys to see. This is Luffy, definitely Luffy. And this is definitely Uzumaki Naruto. Oh, I like the way they just added these cameos. Well, it's not their story, but I mean, can't blame them. They're trying to make it interesting. Let's move on. Oh yeah, this girl, I think I've seen her from a certain anime. Can't remember, but yeah. Anyway, so over here you can see the art is kind of changing a little bit. You can see the art style is starting to look more simple, which is okay for a comic. But I think they were trying to make it too much like manga. But this is an African comic. It doesn't necessarily have to be like manga in order for it to sell. But, I mean, anyway. And the conversation was just so off. Because there's a stranger she meets over there. The stranger points out that whatever she's going to buy is not fresh, as the man said. It's not fresh rainbow corn. So she shouldn't buy it. And then she realizes, so this kind of helps us to understand that this girl is very naive. Tatashi is very naive. But then there's this mysterious friend that comes up to tell her that the whatever she wants to buy, the rainbow corn, is not fresh. And look at this. I don't like these stuff. This is a professional something. Why should some of the text not be in a text bubble? It wasn't intended, trust me. And if it was intended, why was it placed on the background to make it interfere with the text color? Anyway, so over here she's thanking her for the help, which is cool. And then she keeps following her all the day till she kind of noticed she was following her all along. And that makes me question the whole thing. Who in his or her right sense will follow a stranger? She seems to know the place very well, looking at how she jumped outside the house, so happy to come to the market. For her to know this place so well, I don't expect her to be that naive about what she's buying. That's one. The second thing is, I also don't expect her to follow this stranger just like that, because for someone who likes coming to the market, you see, whatever she's saying means like she knows what she's doing, she's used to it. I don't expect her to just follow a stranger randomly like that, just because a stranger helped her to not buy the wrong stuff because it wasn't fresh. I mean, so she follows her all the way and then taps her and mistakenly pulls off her garment. I mean, the part that's covering her face. And she gets to see her face. Apparently, this girl is a princess and she's trying to hide her identity. And this girl, Tatashi, met her and exposed her. Not necessarily exposed her, but like she got to see her actual face. Tried to become friends with her. But I don't like how the dialogue went. They tried to make her look so naive. It's so naive, it doesn't feel so realistic. Because she's saying sorry, and she wanted to thank her for what happened back there. So she walked all the way from the market, followed this girl all the way. And, if someone calls you peasant, you don't follow the person all the way just to say thank you. And now she's opening up totally to a stranger. I know she's naive, but even naive people don't behave this way that much. And yeah, just like she's saying, she talks a lot, but the kind of things she talks about doesn't feel so real. And now she's talking about her aunt to a total stranger. That doesn't make sense. I think they are trying their best to make it look like a manga. And that sort of give them off because you can tell they are not used to the manga comedy style, but they're trying to fit it in. I don't actually like copying a lot of stuff from the outside world, but I like going through to see the things they did best and the things I can learn from it. Learn from it, not copy. So all these facial expressions and stuff, I don't have a problem because it's an art style. But you can tell they are forcing it to look a certain way. Now she's being all close to her, which is weird. Now back to the composition thing. You see how the textures are all over them in the background, but their colors are very similar to the background. So like, how do we know these are the people we're supposed to look at? I know they are the only people on the screen, which makes it easier, but this is bad design, if you ask me. You see over here, you can't really tell what you're looking at until you look at it carefully. This is the guy's face and the other guy's hair, and it's all blended in the background. It's annoying. You see how this one is so easy to tell what you're looking at because of the background and then their faces and then the hair. And this one too, because the background is all white, you can tell what you're looking at. That's actually why most mangas really sell well, because they do most of the artwork in black and white. So they are very limited on what to use. All they care about is blacks and whites. So the whites will be taking care of the brightness and the blacks will be taking care of the darkness. So whatever they do is like, they can tell whether one side is darker than the other, if it's easier to see or not. Like, they're restricting themselves from using colors, basically, which is a good thing. It reduces costs and then it helps tell the story faster. Now for a princess, I wouldn't expect a princess that seemed to, be so pompous and proud over here to call her a peasant. I didn't think she was going to cry the moment she just gets caught by the palace officials, which is weird. Very weird. So the girl uses her pepper bomb. She lights a matchstick and then creates an explosion, which distracts them and then they get away with it, which is cool. A nice way to, get her to escape. But this doesn't make sense because now this is the last page of the comic. We see them running into a dark place in the forest, definitely to hide from these guys. So they are taking a different route, and she says she knows the route. But if you look at this as a pilot for a comic, this is not so impressive. It's impressive. The art is impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Most of the artwork is impressive. The composition, not so much, but it's impressive how they're able to draw this way and color it that way. And the fact that it didn't look too un-African. But I don't think if I were a customer seeing this comic on a shelf, I don't think after reading this full episode or this whole chapter, I'm going to come back and read the next chapter. Because they haven't given me a reason to want to read it in the first place. Because, let me go all the way to the top. This is catchy for any girl that wants to read comics, and girls hardly read comics in Africa. Now, the first artwork after the cover page is kind of off. That turns me off as an artist or someone who's been reading a lot of manga. This is cool, but that's not part of the story. This turns me off. This looks lazy. If you can do this, why do you do that? Why do you do that? Shows that we're not really taking it so seriously. Someone like me who has a lot of passion for comics, manga, and art in general, I didn't expect them to just act like they could do whatever they want and just send it out. Anyway, it's free, so you should understand that it was low budget. But if you can do that for the cover art, why don't you just make it good enough throughout. So it starts like this, and then the art changes, and then it's like throughout the whole story, we know this mystery is something we're supposed to look forward to. And we know there's something about the market. There's something that's supposed to welcome us to the story, the world, how it works. Now we know there's a palace where there's this princess who doesn't want to go back home, like Jasmine from Aladdin. Now we know there are palace officials looking for the girl. And then we know there's something called a pepper bomb. So they can use food to make weapons, food to make other stuff. And Tatashi seems to know her stuff when it comes to that. And she helps her run away, a stranger she never knew. Now she has a reason to trust Tatashi. That's cool. But like, what's the point? I understand there's Willy zone, beware. Which means they are going to face danger, alright. But why should we care enough about these characters? We haven't gotten to feel them. We haven't gotten to relate to them yet. We just saw this character to be naive and pompous, childish, reckless, to jump out of the window, which is good character design. Good character development, I mean. But then she gets here and then all of a sudden it's like she's clueless about what she's trying to buy. And then this random girl helps her. And then all of a sudden she follows her all the way, telling her everything about her life. Which is very contrasty when it comes to this. Because this part shows that she doesn't care what anyone says or thinks about her. So she definitely wouldn't care about telling someone about herself in the first place. But she ended up telling this random girl who didn't seem to want to talk to her. And that's the last page of the first chapter. Honestly, I'm not so happy with this. Because I've already spoken about the problems that I saw. I think I even wrote some notes here on my iPad. Let me see. Alright, so I feel like their comic is too woke. Too woke in the sense that it's like they are doing their best to make it look like an African comic. Why can't you just tell a story without trying to make it feel African? I mean, I understand you must embrace where you're coming from, but the more you do it, the more you look weird. It's like, we know you're from Africa. Stop trying to overdo it. Because Africa, honestly, doesn't necessarily feel like this. There are some things you can relate to, like buying something in the market which is not fresh, but the man will say it's fresh. And then some people, if someone is well educated about stuff like this, they're going to let you know that it's not fresh, which makes sense. But these storylines, I don't know if any African is going to want to read this, honestly. The art is good, the story is good, but it wasn't arranged the right way. It wasn't arranged in such a way that will pique your interest to come and read again. And I think most of the story is misinformed. But I'll get that in another video. And it's copying too much of Western comics and manga. I understand they are doing something that was made or invented by the outside world, but you can tell they are overdoing something that is not part of them as a people. When you realize someone overdoing something they are not passionate about, you can feel it. Hence the different art styles that we were seeing. Also, it looks too medieval inspired, because Africa isn't so medieval. Again, I'm not trying to tell them how to write their stories, what kind of story should write, what kind of setting it should be. But I feel like I personally hate it when every African comic seems to be set in a world where there were no modern stuff. Like you can see actual cars around, or you see our old stuff. Because whatever I'm seeing here is like a world where there are no bicycles, no motorbikes. All they use are chariots. But then there's Okada over here. So like that makes me wonder if it's medieval or it's not, like modern. And basically there's no thought-provoking philosophy behind the story. It's like we can't tell the main theme behind the story. Because when you think about certain comics like the ones they made cameos of, like this one. If we see a comic like One Piece, we know very well that they're trying to tell a story about this kid who wanted to be a pirate king, which is more than enough for you to understand what the story is going to be about. Pirates. So you know it's not going to be modern, which explains this. You see, Luffy is like this kind of guy who wants to be a pirate. So it's all about passion and dream. So we have this main character who's very, not so naive. He was naive when he was a kid, but you could tell he was very courageous, very silly, but was willing to do whatever it takes to get things the way he wanted, just like a pirate wants. And now we have Naruto here. Naruto, you can tell Naruto is all about being accepted by others. The story is centered on a kid who doesn't have any family, no one cares about. There are a lot of secrets about him that he himself they don't even know, but people knew, so they never wanted to mingle around him. His body was like the prison for a monster that destroyed their village some time ago. So everyone sees him to be a monster. And that helps you to understand why he does the stuff that he does, because he's trying to get people's attention. He's just making sure that people know he's there, which is philosophical. But when it comes to Tatashi, it's like we can't really sense that philosophy behind the story. It has potential, honestly. The art style, the world design, and everything has a big potential. But I think whoever directed the art made it a bit difficult to enjoy. Well, for me, at least. So, yeah. Basically, that's all I'm going to talk about for this specific comic. I'm going to be reading other chapters too. I've already read the second chapter of Tatashi. So you know what? There's something I realized. Let me show it to you before I end this video. I want to see if you guys will notice any difference. Okay. So this is the cover page for Tatashi, chapter 2. This is okay for a cover photo. But do you realize how the art style has changed all of a sudden? It's like the brush they use has changed, the color style they use has changed, the artist has changed completely. Which is not a big issue, but consistency is very important when it comes to a comic. I know it had been like 2 years since they started the comic to come back to the chapter 2, but that doesn't really give them the right to just change the art style. The art style it gives the comic an identity, something the readers can relate to. The moment you change that, it's not going to look good. Because look at this. Look at how the art style just changed all of a sudden. The color palette just changed. It's like the way the person colors has changed. they've added a bit of noise texture to make it look like it's on the paper, which is nice. But if you start with something, just keep on with it. At least that's going to keep it consistent. So you see how the drawing style has changed, even the hairstyle has changed a little bit. Look at how the drawing style has become. This is actually a nicer art style if you ask me, but everything changing like that makes it look so weird, and I don't like when it looks weird. I'm not going to go into detail on this one, because look at the art style over here. I'm not saying it's nicer, but this created a first impression for us, so them changing it made it look so weird. Let me just put this on one side so you can tell what I'm talking about. Okay, so look at these two art styles. This looks so colorful. The arts looks cool over here. Over here too, the art looks cool, but the colors look dim. And I understand we're trying to make it bright over here because it's about food and vegetables. And when it comes to portraying food, or let me say, art of food, like food photography or something, the contrast of the colors should stand out, should pop. But it's like they changed the whole art direction all of a sudden. And that destroys the beauty of the story. Totally destroys the beauty of the story. And we even see a change in how they made their narrations. I don't know. I like the graphic design, I like the organization of the whole thing, but I don't like the art's direction and the story. It seems mediocre to me. I know there are even worse comics like this. I know there are other comics that can't even match up to these. There are probably even other comics that are way better than this. But the fact that I don't hear about them means they're not selling well. Because I like reading manga. I like reading a lot of comics. But I've never heard of these ones. I just got to know about them because I wanted to start my own comic. And I wanted to know if I had someone to, look out for as I'm working. Maybe for inspiration. And to look out for as a competitor. But I think if I were to be doing this comic alone, I would have been able to release like 3 chapters in about 6 chapters in 1 year. I'm sure. Because the art style doesn't look so intense. The story doesn't look so intense. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know. I need you guys to read the comic before you guys try to say I'm being too harsh on them or something. Because this design is nice, but there are a lot of flaws that I wasn't expecting to see them make. This is not a concept that has now been discovered. Comics have always been there since the 1900s, and I don't expect a new comic company to start off with these kind of flaws. So yeah, go ahead and read their comic. I think the website is thecomicrepublic.com. Yeah, check them out and let me know what you think. And let me know if you disagree with what I'm saying. Because I honestly don't like what I'm seeing over here. I wouldn't want this to be in my comics. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.